Welcome to the Pierce Street Historic District. Nestled in the heart of a city that's witnessed the ebb and flow of centuries lies the Pierce Street neighborhood, a beacon of African American heritage and resilience. This is Pierce Street Portraits, a documentary that showcases a journey through time, spirit, and community. Through the voices of its residents, past and present, we will delve into the soul of Pierce Street, from the echoes of the Harlem Renaissance that found a home in the heart of its people, to the silent marches of the Civil Rights Movement. Every step taken on this street has been for one purpose: pride and progress. Join us as we uncover the oral histories that paint a vivid portrait of life on Pierce Street. This is Pierce Street, where every voice tells a story, and every story inspires a legacy.
My first name is Doris. I was living over on Timber Chill, and the school, Yoder School, only went to the 5th grade.
Waltee is my name, Waltee. Carolyn Waltee Johnson Moore. My father had bought a house on Wise Street, and they lived there for a while. And eventually, the house on Pierce Street became available. And that's when they moved there in the early 40s, or rather maybe the late 30s.
And one day I was going through the newspaper, and I seen this house was for rent on Pierce Street. And so I called the man down in Rustburg, Mr. Cunningham. They have a street down there named after him. Well, anyhow, he came, and we got the house.
My name is Hermina Walthall Hendricks, and I was like age 3 when my parents purchased the house on 1216 Pierce Street, which no longer exists anymore, but the place, that area is still there. But there is no house there. So it was in the early 50s. I know I was age 3 because I had to go to Bethune Nursery School, which I didn't like.
Where I was born and brought home to Pierce Street. That's the only home that I've ever known when I was growing up. That was the only home until I became a grown man, almost 20 years of age. I lived strictly in that neighborhood. I lived on 14th Street, which is between Pierce and Buckhannon, and my address, I still remember today, 1607 14th Street.
We first moved to Pierce Street in the 1200 block in the mid-1960s and stayed there until the late 1960s. We moved to 1317 Pierce Street.
My name is Janice Atkins Benahan. It was between Pierce and Fillmore, that little, tiny little section there, and I lived at 1514 16th Street.
The neighborhood was very nice. Everybody kind of looked out for each other. And my children went to Payne School, which was like 5 minutes from where we lived.
And plus, after you pass 16th Street from where I live, that was all black. Just that one block. And up there at 13th and Pierce, Geraldine Wood and myself, we're the last of the elders of the blacks.
So literally, I have existed on that street ever since age 3, and my home house still exists today, 1322. So we've 1216 Pierce to 1322 Pierce Street. And they purchased the house from Warwick Spencer. And Warwick Spencer was the brother of Ed Spencer, who was the husband of Ann Spencer. And so this was the 1200 block. And so we resided there from the late 50s until about 1968. And during that time, we literally moved from the 1200 block to the 1300 block, 1322 Pierce Street.
I grew up in DC, and every summer until 1971, my siblings and I would spend the entire summer at my grandfather's home on Pierce Street. And that is the home of Dr. Robert W. Whirlwind Johnson. And my memories are that of being around other tennis players. There were students who came from across the country to play on that court, to hone their skills on the court.
And so when I think about Pierce Street, I suddenly think about my childhood decades ago. Somebody, we played kickball or something. It was just a lots of neighbors, lots of friends, especially in that 12 from the 12th Street to 13th Street. There were just a lot of children. I mean, but we roller skate. I mean, we just did a lot together.
All the kids, no matter what socioeconomic strata you came from, we all played together and we all got along together.
So it was really a good neighborhood to be in. We had enough boys in the neighborhood to play football every evening or basketball. Um, we just did everything together. We became friends. We went to the same school.
Oh yeah, well, integration, yeah, a real integration because we had started having white teachers. We had started having not a lot, but a few white teachers, and we had a white principal. But no, I didn't go to school with any white people at all.
I can remember, when the school was integrated, it was the last year you could, attend Dunbar was 1970. You had a choice of whether you wanted to go, to the quote unquote white school before then. But after that, you had to go. And so I guess backing up a little bit, I can remember the sadness among some of my classmates saying they had to go to E.C. Glass High School, because they just the parents thought that they would be getting a better education out there, which, in my opinion, is not true to this day.
It was great. It was great to be in the last graduating class of Dunbar because we kind of we weren't forced to go to EC Glass.
I was supposed to come out in 68, but I liked high school so much. Guess what? I went back there in the class of 69 and took a couple of extra classes. So my class was supposed to be 68, but officially I graduated in 69, next to the last one. I saw something that was missing there because basically at Dunbar, I can only remember maybe 2 white teachers there. And those teachers were hard on you. They made sure that you got your lesson. And it seemed like some, when they moved from the all black school to another school, the teachers weren't that hard on them.
Some of them went to EC Glass, but we didn't. We went to Dunbar all the way.
You're lucky. You had a good education.
Yeah, oh Lord, I love that school. Love that school.
We were sad that our school was closing because the that was the black school in the neighborhood. And we were sad that our school was closing down. They were going to tear down the building. And unfortunately, I wasn't here when the building was torn down. I was in college then, but I um, I was sad that the building was torn down and things were misplaced and thrown away and things like that from that building.
I went to Dunbar until the 11th grade. That's when the schools would Dunbar closed as a high school, and I spent my senior year at EC Glass. I spent most of the year trying to navigate the school, trying to learn the school. It was at the time in a lot of instances, EC Glass wasn't a welcoming environment because things not only had to change, we were um, not in favor of leaving our alma mater. And when we got to EC Glass, it wasn't a totally welcoming environment, not just from students, but from faculty and staff as well.
You start noticing that there may have been a black sales lady, or start noticing some things outside, moving from segregation to integration. But in those, for me, from my lens, I didn't notice any difference with that. But it didn't affect us. It didn't affect our mobility within that neighborhood.
Well, I never experienced integration in the educational sense because I never sat down in school beside a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant or any member of any race until I was a sophomore in college.
I came out of an all black situation, which most of us in my age group did, and they can certainly talk about that. And we might have, and I'm sure we have some differences, but amongst us who grew up, we have some common themes amongst us.
As a mom, I would talk to my children about how things were, and I taught them, don't ever think that anybody is better than you are. I said, you just as good as anybody else and better than most. Always think that of yourself.
It was just a neighborhood of children and adults, and you respected them.
Oh, we ain't had nothing but famous people. School teachers, mail curls, up in the block. From Drilling Wood, we had beauticians up there with license. They had that license to do hair at home, and from 12th Street on down, we have always had special people. And it wasn't pleasant when I moved over there. I was on Pierce Street, where I am right now, 1509 Pierce Street.
The neighborhood that we lived in, it was integrated. If you really want to know the truth, we had white and blacks living in the same area. Now, I don't say that they were best friends, come over and have tea or something like that. But when you passed, you saw them and you spoke or they spoke.
There were a mix of families. So it wasn't just like all black. It eventually started to transition. But there was a mix. Like my friend that was next door to us on one side, it was a young white girl that we were friends, but her mother did not like that. And I knew that because she would sit in her living room and I could hear her say racial stuff to me through the front door when no one was around.
All I ever did, whether you did it or not, I just said good evening or good morning and kept going. The elder lady that I was telling you about, she fell off the porch one day. And I went over to try to help her. I had already dialed 911. And she used the N word, told me, don't you put your hand on me. But I stayed with her until the police came and the ambulance came. Uh-huh. But other than that, no trouble at all. None whatsoever.
In every house, that's what I remember, in the 1200 block, there were children. And I grew up watching my parents work hard for us, coming through segregation and eventually into integration. I think most of us who grew up in that neighborhood and the kids during that time, they knew that one way to get through this world was get your education, because that could never be taken away from you. Everything else can, but if you have your education, you can be successful. So I grew up thinking that.
So I don't know, sense of neighborhood has sort of changed. Uh, um, and that's sad, but that's the way it goes. So
Now, You can say good evening, good morning, and you're not going to get anything. But it's a lot of young folks that's in the neighborhood now. I remember about a few months ago over at Jubilee, they was trying to bring the community together, mothers, children, and everybody.
You don't see people sitting on their porches like you used to. And I like to see people sitting on the porch. I don't see people walking through the neighborhood much.
The little 6-year-old boy that got killed in his bed is my great nephew.
Well, I hope they refurbish it the way that it was, if possible. And I hope that it becomes the meeting place that I think they would like for it to become.
Basically, I want the legacy of the neighborhood to be that no matter what the obstacles these people faced, that they were able to persevere and overcome. And I want the neighborhood to be, once again remembered for its cohesiveness, which back in those days, you know, uh, you would see your neighbors shopping at the store in the neighborhood, whereas now you and your neighbor will never even, maybe go into different stores. Or you might see, you'd get to know your neighbors from just standing at the bus stop, whereas now, it's just a walk, from the car, you know, uh, to go wherever.
Oh gosh, I want that neighborhood to survive. I wish it would I mean, it can't come back the way it was, but it certainly can be a community and a neighborhood that people respect. And when I say people, I'm talking about all economic levels respect because the changes in that neighborhood has brought it down. And what is saving the neighborhood is it being designated a historical area. And certainly with the garden and what the Pierce Street Gateway board is doing, because you've got other people coming in who have total different values.
I would like to see the neighborhood pretty much built up and maintained the way it is now. Not like some neighborhoods, have just literally fall apart. Even if the same people are not there, I would still like to see it maintained. And it is a historic district. And once again, I'm being idealistic.
I would prefer to see it a neighborhood where basically any and everybody can afford to live there. I've seen a couple of homes there that came available, but yeah, I thought about it once, twice, buying a home there and just to have it rented out or whatever. But
This is a new day and a new time. And so it doesn't have to necessarily be all black. It has to be a cultural thing, an appreciation for history. And we're going to move into the neighborhood and we're going to maintain and we're going to be a part of the board and we're going to be a part of whatever goals and objectives we want in this neighborhood, the beautification.